Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff After Hours. This is Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon. I'm a retired 27-year veteran from the NYPD. I retired as a detective sergeant out of Manhattan North Homicide Squad. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Summer Wells case. And we spoke about it last night. I was on Duty Ron's show last night. And we brought on an amazing guest named Barbara Butcher. And I'm going to defer to her what we spoke about with her last night. I'm going to put her up on the screen because I found her what she said so relevant to what we're talking about here. And when there's so many people talking about this case, and perhaps it gets very much unprofessional. So we're going to listen to a professional talk about this case, about what occurred here.
Now, I hope Barbara doesn't block my phone after this, but I called her.
She might.
If she does, I know where she lives now. I'll come check it now. But I called her because I want to go to an expert. And I asked Barbara, would you please take a peek at this photograph? And she kindly said, yes, Duty Ron, I'll look at it. Send it to me. So, Barbara, I'm going to put this photograph up, and I want you to just you take it from there. I'm going to put it up, and I'll go full screen on it so everyone has a good view. Can you see this good, Barbara?
Yes, that's perfect right there. Yeah, just come in another little notch there, Ron.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. I think you have to look at the evidence, right? And the evidence, the best evidence is the little girl's color. Her lips are rosy pink. Her color is good. There's a slight blush in her cheek. And her eyes don't have that bluish tinge. The eyelids that they sometimes get where the skin is so thin that in a deceased person, without blood, you're seeing a very pale, almost blue look. Now, I see that her temples bilaterally there, they're shaded a tiny bit. And that is, so I think some people have, indented the sides of their skulls here. I know I do. A lot of people have that. And I think that's between that and the shadow of her hair. That's what you're seeing. I don't call that bruising or anything else. The other thing to notice is her little hands. The way kids sleep, their little hands curl up and then they kind of jump. And it looks like she's just sort of fallen asleep, dozed off on the milk.
I've joined you here, Barbara, not to cut you off, because I wanted to point out these areas on the temple right here that I have my cursor going around. I know it's hard to see, but here on right and left, the right and left temple area, this was some of the areas that people homed in on. And with conversations that I saw, they said, this looks like bruising here. Now, it's consistent on both sides. And I don't know if this was from a day or an hour at the watering hole, or if this is something that is normal for her. But you, as a professional here, you don't see anything with that, right?
No, you're seeing the shadow of her temples, and you're seeing the shadow of her hair, and the particular turn of the lighting. As you can see right over her forehead there, right over her bangs, there's a dark shadow over her hair. Okay. I couldn't possibly call that an injury looking at this photograph, but her position, her neck, if she were dead, you would see a sag at the angle of her neck there, but she's not. She's propped against the milk container because that's how she conked out.
So the sag would be down here by her. If we're standing behind her, it would be her right cheek here, right?
Yeah, just in from there, just down toward the shoulder.
Right, between the milk, the red sign on the carton, and here at the shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd see more of her, I think you'd see her neck sagging more, because if she would truly limp, truly dead,
Right.
And I mean, then someone could say, oh, well, perhaps she's got rigor mortis. Perhaps she died in this particular position. And that doesn't seem likely at all. She's laying exactly on those milk containers, the way her shoulder fits over the bottom container there. This, to me, looks just like a little girl who fell asleep in the car.
Now, Judy, Ron, we brought her on specifically because she's an expert. We introduced her. She is a retired chief of staff of the New York City Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. And for 23 and a half years, she was a medical legal investigator. So she has been to approximately 680 homicide scenes. And really, we brought her to the scene to dispel one of these internet rumors telling us that Summer was dead in that picture in the car.
Right. And, you know, Bill, let me just say, first off, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor to be here on Police Off the Cuff. As law enforcement professionals, this is what we like to do. We like to bring the police perspective to the audience, to the folks who follow true crime, to some of the people who are following these cases, whether they're, you know, mothers, grandmothers, fathers, you know, sisters, brothers. Everybody has an interest. When it comes to a child, this is a very, you know, it tugs at everybody's heart. But at the end of the day, you need to have valid information. And the reason you and I both got together and we came to the conclusion that Barbara Butcher was the perfect person for this is because of the misinformation that has been spoken about. Now, again, people are entitled to speak whatever they want to speak about. But when it comes to these cases, I think it does a lot of harm when a lot of falsehoods are being reported and people are drawing conclusions. So I thought it was a great idea to have her come on just to give an educational conversation about this particular situation and this particular rumor. And she did a fantastic job because she's a consummate professional, just like you are in the homicide field. You know, you've been on the scene of many, many different high-profile cases, low-profile cases, and everything in between. So when you speak, I listen, and I think everybody else here in the audience has to agree. You know, when you have a 27-year homicide detective sergeant, and 16 out of those 27 years was supervising homicides, you know, you're somebody to listen to. So,
well, I appreciate that, Ron. And one of the things that we sort of advertised tonight, and one of the things that is very important in homicide investigation, is what we call a timeline. And the timeline in this case, to me, is at best very sketchy because the timeline is not put forth by the police or by the FBI or by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. It's put forth by these internet sleuths. And they're actually interviewing some of the players in this case. And I don't trust the timeline, you know, because unless it's put forth by the actual investigators that interviewed these people at length, and not just interviewed one or two, but vetted the information against other information. For example, timestamps. And timestamps can be receipts from a store. They can be phone calls. They can be a car going through an easy pass lane. They can be video. Those are true blue timestamps. And that's what can verify and vet the information that you get from witnesses. But when you get internet sleuths claiming that this is a solid timeline, this is what happened, and this is when it happened, I don't really trust it. So I wanted to go over with you as close as we could get what we think the timeline is.
Can I just interject one thing there, Bill, because you brought up a great point. The internet folks who are following, that's the Facebook groups, the people who are in YouTube videos, but these folks go by what's being reported and also what Candace Wells and Donald Wells has spoken about and other various family members. And I think it's important that everybody understands that, you know, we all have the right to speak to whoever we want to speak to. But when it comes to a sensitive investigation where it involves a 5-year-old girl or any child or any criminal activity, if you start investigating and interviewing people that could be potential witnesses, not just now, but now become potential perpetrators in the crime, now you're talking about you're going to be subpoenaed to Tennessee to testify. If you live in Alaska, you're going to be subpoenaed to Tennessee. If you live in California, you're going to be subpoenaed to Tennessee. And that's the thing, is that people don't understand, is that when you start speaking to people, they might be innocent or in your mind innocent right now. But once an investigation unfolds and it leads down a different road, now we can have a whole new set of things going on.
You know, Ron, you're so correct with that. And I don't think people understand real criminal minds and real criminal nature because, you know, obviously, Don, in this case, he's had a pretty substantial criminal background, you know, and as that, I consider him pretty slick when he talks to people, you know.
Yeah.
He keeps that monotone voice. He keeps his body language to a minimum. And I just think that it doesn't help when people that are not the police interview him. Purportedly, no one on the internet is solving this case. You know,
Correct.
This is going to be solved by the police and going to be solved by investigators from TBI and the FBI.
You know, the reason I showed 3 very high-profile criminal cases. One that was just recent with the little boy from Las Vegas, Nevada, Amari. I showed those 3 not to sensationalize or not to make people go, "Oh my goodness." I showed those clips because those were folks that were chattering about them that they were innocent at some points or another. And people were saying, don't draw conclusions. Don't point your fingers at these people. They're innocent until proven guilty. And that is what we're provided, and that's what we're afforded under the Constitution in America. So you're innocent until proven guilty. But at the end of the day, Bill, those folks were being talked about in those fake book news groups and on the chatter, in the chatter sphere, in Twitter sphere, whatever you want to call it. They were being talked about as being innocent, and stop pointing fingers at them. Like I said from the beginning, Barry Morphew is 100% guilty, and it has something to do with his wife's disappearance. And I wasn't even sure about the Trevor Noel kid, but he didn't get charged, but Barry did. And I said it from the get-go, and I got a lot of flack for it. But that was my gut instinct as a detective and as an investigator. You know, you and I have the advantage over like people that have not been in this career or been in this profession. We've seen evil right in front of us and tell us straight to our face, I did not commit this crime. And then after hours and hours of interview and interrogation, we turn them around and then place the handcuffs on them. Most folks here can't say that they've done that. And that's the difference in the experience that you and I have to offer in and other law enforcement retired professionals on YouTube. So
100%, you know, and having said that, I want to now show one of the first interviews that they did with Don and his wife Rose Bly. Oh, that's like, excuse me, not Rose Bly. Candace Bly. Yep. I'm going to show one of the first interviews, and
we're gonna get into a Rose Bly after this. So
I feel in my heart that somebody has came up here and took her, has lured her away from here. Me and my mother and her were planting flowers. And we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers. And I said, okay. And I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV. And I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back. And within 2 minutes, I came back. And I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said she went downstairs home to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. I don't go on walks around here or runs because I'm scared of the bears and snakes and even the coyotes that are around here. Well, whoever has my daughter, I pray and hope that they have not harmed her and they bring her back to us safe and sound.
Just go to the FBI, the police, and clear it up. I mean, I don't know. It seems kind of elusive.
It's really strange that I've never seen this truck, and I've never heard of it until just recently. But I wish they would come forward and explain themselves. And if you're not a suspect, at least come forward and say what you've seen. she was a tomboy. I shaved my head. She wanted to have her head shaved like me and the boys did.
She tried to shave her head
She tried
in
to
the
shave her
back
head
and make
herself.
it. I think you can see it in some of the pictures, and it was getting out of control. So we decided to shave her head off and let it grow back long, and she shaved her head to so she wouldn't feel bad, and but it didn't bother her at this point. Well, I knew right away that she was abducted. You know, I knew that right away, and that's what I told them from the beginning. But they have to go through their, you know, I forget the word.
Investigation.
They have to do one step at a time, I guess. But I'm sorry that they had to spend so many man hours in these woods and everything. I've seen them limping and everything else, you know, and I feel for them. But I just wish there was a way that neighbors could search neighbors' houses, and then if they're not willing, you know, get a search warrant or something. But there's just no way you can search every single house, you know, in the eastern United States or whatever. But I wish there was a way. Just thankful for the person or persons that's doing that, you know, out of love, trying to get information and trying to get her found. We thank them from the bottom of our hearts.
That means a lot.
And we thank everybody who's trying so hard and praying so hard. And she's an awesome young lady, and we just want her back. But, yeah, there's always going to be haters, you know, and you know, it's always going to be that way in this world. And we just want to focus on the good friends and Christian people that are trying to help us and praying for us and praying for Summer. And we thank them from the bottom of our hearts. And that's the kind of people we try to relate with and socialize with. So we don't know anything about, you know, no red truck, or we hardly know many of our neighbors. I mean, because we just try to be around good people. I mean, and we do have good people in this area. We found out since this has all happened. We got some real good neighbors and good folks everywhere. But
the most important thing is to bring Summer home safe. I'm sorry that you feel this way about us, but we love our children with everything we have. We've never went without, thanks to Summer's daddy and my husband. He's always provided for us and has worked as much as he could and can and still is. And I'm sorry that you guys feel that way, but that's my baby, and nobody would ever treat her like that as long as I was around, ever.
She loves to dance. She would always want me. She says, "Daddy, hold my hand so I can twirl." And she would just like to twirl and twirl and twirl till my arm got tired, you know. But and you know, I put out there that one of Summer's favorite songs was Godzilla, and they say, you know, and they're jumping all over me about past tense was, you know. Well, I'm sorry about that. It's just.
She also liked the song by New Breed. It was called House, My House. She sung that a lot of times when I play it on the TV. She loved to dance.
She liked to think of herself as a princess, and you know, and all that, like all young girls do. And
she loved Frozen. She loved to be that Elsa, and
I think she really loved to be in church because she felt a lot of love there. And I think you can't explain what that love is, but you feel it and you know, when you're young. And she felt that there, and she loved everybody in that church, or she loves everybody in that church. I should rephrase that, because they'll tear that apart as past tense, and I apologize again for that. I hope she gets to come home, you know, and I hope she gets to be with our church family again.
Our best friend in that church was Robin. She loved her to death.
Yeah, she looked up to
When
women that were
she come to that church, she went looking for Robin. That was her favorite person.
any woman that was professional, that
Was pretty,
yeah,
beautiful.
she looked up to those kind of women. She, they were the word I'm looking for. Can't think of it, but she looked up to them.
Look around. The world is.
Well, this that past video has been shown and analyzed and reanalyzed. There's been body language experts reviewing it, but yet, I mean, it doesn't make me feel good. I'll put it that way. When I watch that, it makes me feel that there's some culpability there. And when we talk about, and I don't want to call this a homicide, but she's been missing now for, I think it's been like 25 days, and we hope that she is found alive and she comes back and they find her alive. But I always like to get back to what I call the victimology, and that's the study of the victim. And when you look at the parents here, it occurs to me that someone in their circle, if it's not them, someone in their circle is responsible for this. And the answer is in the victimology, in studying who do they let into their life? Who do they let see their kids? Who do they let have contact with their kids? Right away, Don said that he thinks she was abducted, which I thought was a bit of a strange thing to say. And again, they kept referring to her in the past tense, which also doesn't make me feel very good. What do you think about that, Duty Ron?
Bill, I got to agree with you. Of course, as I always say, innocent until proven guilty. My first look at Don was when he was talking to the media with his arm around his son, and his son was looking down at the floor, and he was talking about the story. The unverified timeline, because it has not been put out by TBI and FBI, to me, this is what we have to go with. And every time I look at this, I just get a bad taste in my mouth. And I'm not saying that they're 100% guilty, but I definitely don't get a good feeling about it. Again, speaking in past tense, not concentrating on the bulk of the conversation about their daughter. I see more time of them trying to defend themselves against the internet people that are coming after them. They should be more concerned about where the hell their daughter is than trying to defend their talking in past tense and keep saying, I'm sorry about that. So these are a lot of red flags for me. And as an investigator, it just throws me right off, because if it was my kids and it was my wife and I sitting there, we would be screaming from the rooftops, where is our daughter? And I would certainly be holding her and comforting her. And I don't see any emotion. I don't see anything from these people. So for me, and I had an FBI polygraph expert come on and said he didn't feel that they were being deceptive. And you know what? Everybody's entitled to their own opinions, and each individual investigator may have a different look. You heard Captain Tim Coop from the search and rescue say, we need a fresh set of bodies here and a fresh set of eyes. That's why we work in teams. Detectives don't just solve the case, one guy. It's always a team. So that's my take on it, Bill.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. Sergeant Melinda, thank you so much for that $99 super chat. Matt Sully, thank you for the $20 super chat. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm Sergeant Bill Cannon, retired NYPD 27-year veteran. I've been teaming up a lot with Duty Ron. We have a good chemistry together. This is a very important case. And, we that are doing these podcasts, we're trying to help. We're from law enforcement. There are brothers in law enforcement. We're trying to help them in their efforts. And we don't specifically, and I'm not to criticize other podcasters, but certain things aren't helpful, and when you keep interviewing major players in these cases, I don't think that helps in law enforcement. But in the same vein, law enforcement has to use the press to their advantage, because getting the information out there, the press is so invaluable. I mean, there was reports that on the 15th, there was a red pickup truck seen in the vicinity. That may be a very integral piece of evidence. It may turn out to be not so. But the only people that know that for sure and why they're looking for this pickup truck is law enforcement. We can speculate on the internet. We can speculate all over the place, but they're the only people that for sure know why this truck is a piece of evidence of interest. I'll put it that way. NYPD Captain, thank you so much for the $14.99 chat. NYPD is they're showing up in these chats, and I really appreciate that.
Love our brothers and sisters in blue, and these are folks that we were out there in the trenches with. So thank you so much, Captain, for the super chat. Bill, I want to expand a little bit on the red pickup truck. Okay, I did some of my own investigating, just as you have, and there's a lot of things that I looked into that I won't even talk about. But this one is out there. One of the investigators from either the TBI or the FBI or the local gumshoes were going door to door, and here's a look at the overview of the property of the Wells home. There's a main house and there's a trailer that the grandmother lives on, just onto the side of that home. But as they were conducting their investigation, one of the investigators went to a neighbor. There's a look straight up at the house from the bottom of the hill. One of the neighbors gave an investigator the red truck, was in that area on June 15th. In the late afternoon when she was reported missing, early dinner time. So the information on that red truck is still very relevant because that could be the missing piece that we're looking for. And updates on TBI's website as of today, July 10th of 2021, over 900 tips called into the 1-800-TBI find. No leads are leading them to a conclusion. So it's an unfortunate thing. Thank you for putting Duty Ron right across the screen. But that is a huge number that has swelled. It's swelling. And I want to also reiterate to the folks that are out there, the good, valid information, not the information that was heard from 3 different people and then it gets watered down and comes to you. When you get somebody that says to you, I have some good information, and I do the same thing when someone sends something into dutyron.com. I either tell them to send it to the TBI if it's good, or I'll do it for them. So I have forwarded several messages myself to 1-800-TBI find. But yeah, over 900 tips, and that number just keeps swelling. So keep calling in those good tips. The investigators need that little critical piece. So we are counting on the public as well as the local law enforcement, federal, state, and local. So.
You know, Duty Ron, someone just said in the chat, why haven't they put out a missing persons report? Well, an Amber Alert is a missing persons report that lets everyone know that this person is missing. And there's heavy duty criteria to establish an Amber Alert, or else, they'd be doing them every single day. So an Amber Alert is taken extremely seriously. And
Bill, and I can expand on that because
sure.
Wednesday, June 16th, just a day after the parents reported Summer Wells missing, it was an endangered child alert for number 1, going into day number 2 on the morning of Wednesday, June 16th. The TBI upgraded the endangered child alert to a full-fledged Amber Alert after they said new information and growing concerns about the well-being of Summer Wells prompted a statewide alert. So it happened within 24 hours. I think it was probably within 12 to 18 hours that an Amber Alert was activated. And that's a missing persons report right there.
100%. I just want to get back to the husband, Don. And for the untrained investigator, he comes across as a very mellow guy, almost,
a nice guy.
A nice guy, almost like a minister, almost like a priestly. He comes across with that very soft tone, but he's got a hell of a criminal record, and he's got violence in his criminal history, and he's had alcohol and drug problems. So to me, when I say in the victimology, the answer to this is going to be in the victimology. It's going to be in the people, either Don or Candace, or the people that they surround themselves with. That's where the answer is going to come from. Because as we said before, that old expression, birds of a feather flock together. Who do you think he hangs with? Who do you think they surround themselves with? You know,
Bill and I talked about this on the phone today. You know, we talk a lot behind the scenes about these cases, and a lot of the things that we discuss, we don't speak about on a live stream for sensitivity issues and for investigative purposes. But we talked about this. Birds of a feather flock together. You know, most folks who are committing crimes don't hang out with goody two-shoes, and that's the best way I could put it to you. You know, so again, the investigators' jobs are to talk to everybody and anybody that's affiliated or that's associated or that is attached to the Donald Wells and to Candace Bly Wells. And that's why it takes so long, because you're talking about a potential of maybe dozens of people, dozens and dozens of people to reach out to, you know, and they're going to want to talk to the people from the church. You know, you have this friend that has spoken out recently on YouTube. I think his name is David Dodson from the church. I didn't listen to the interview, but a bunch of people sent me messages into dutyron.com about David Dodson, and I don't know anything about him. But at the end of the day, I can guarantee you this, that investigators are either right now know everything about him or will shortly soon know everything about him, because he is going to get questioned as well. No stone gets left unturned. And you heard Sheriff Lawson speak about this. You heard the TBI spokesman, and also the Captain Tim Coop from the search and rescue over in Hawkins. These folks want to find Summer Wells. That's what we are all here for. We all want to find Summer Wells, but we don't want to interfere, you know. And at the same time, there's so many people that want to help, you know, with resources. I looked at the TBI website, Bill, and I didn't tell you this, but there was truckloads of food that was brought in from local businesses: salads, hand cleaner, gloves, boots, you know, everything, you name it, it was there at that church. So it was a beautiful outpour from the great folks of Tennessee, in Eastern Tennessee. Those people are to be commended, because they all stepped up. The local businesses, the local folks, the parents, the people that are in that community, the church folks, everybody stepped up, and that's what makes people great.
100%. And Joe Murray, thank you so much, the great attorney Joe Murray, for the $9.99 super chat. Thank you for always watching our show, big supporter. SP, thank you for the $20 super chat. And of course, folks, I just so appreciate everyone coming and listening to Police Off the Cuff. And Duty Ron has given me a big boost in my numbers by sharing this on his channel, and I really, really appreciate that. One of the things I wanted to also talk about was that in the timeline and in Candace's story, she talks about them, her grandmother, and Summer putting flowers in around the house. And at some point, she walks Summer into the house, and she goes into the house to purportedly to be with her brothers, who are on screen in that picture there. And then apparently she goes downstairs to the playroom to play with her toys. Now, to me, one of the most important interviews in this whole case is the interview of those three boys. Did that even happen, what she said? Did what Candace said, did that even happen? And if she went down into that basement, wouldn't she have had to come up, or would she have come out the back door of that house? I don't know if that was a possibility. I think that would be the door right there that you see the arrow at.
I've heard there's only one way in and one way out. There's no secondary exit out of the basement. You got to come up and out through the door.
So
at least
then
that's what I heard.
Right. So you can see what an important interview that would be, because what they said would either confirm or deny what their mother had said in regards to her going down those stairs or coming back into the house.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that interview with the children is crucial, but they're not going to show their cards to us. It's just like you're in Vegas and you're not going to show your hand when you're playing poker. You're going to just keep it. So the investigators are, they know a lot more than we do, and they know a lot more than what's being reported. But at the end of the day, the kids are going to be crucial, because no matter how much they could have been coached, and this is a possibility, I'm not saying that this is what happened, but no matter how much their father or mother said, hey, this is the story, stick to it, kids are kids. And if they are talked to and they are, asked leading questions by you know, by someone of authority or someone that they're comfortable with. I'm sure a social worker was in there or some type of Irma could probably expand on this. But if these kids are spoken to the right way, you could get the truth out of them, because kids are innocent and pure. So I think that at the end of the day, you know, if they did get a contradicting statement out of them, as you and I both know, that wouldn't be grounds to immediately arrest them and charge them, but it would certainly raise the level of the investigation to a whole different. But we are getting conversations now that this is coming from the sheriff, that this is now deemed suspicious. So we heard that verbiage with Orrin and Orson West, Bill, over in California, our little boys who are still missing in California in Bakersfield. We heard the sheriff, and also not the sheriff, the chief of the police, John Walker. He said suspicious circumstances. We're hearing that same verbiage here, and I think this is the pieces of the puzzle coming together, and it's slowly happening. And I know everybody's impatient, but at the end of the day, these things take patience and focus to get the job done.
Well, Duty Ron, one of the things is that people, especially with the disappearance of a 5-year-old girl, they expect results. They want results, and they should expect results from the police. But these cases are never, ever easy, but one little piece of information could be the smoking gun that solves this case. There's a lot of convoluted information here. There's a lot of misinformation. And when you're part of a large investigation, you have to vet all kinds of information, and you have to check it against other things, either to confirm it or to eliminate it. And know that that's what takes so much time. And in addition, at the same time, in this case, they're searching the woods in very difficult terrain. I have a picture, I think, of how difficult the terrain is.
And the experts came out, Bill, from the FBI. Their SART, the search and rescue teams. The pinpoint to pinpoint it onto one agency would be, really wouldn't be fair. But so many different search and rescue agencies have joined forces and came as mutual aid in this search for Summer. So when I started doing my reading a couple of days ago about the different units that are there and that continue to provide, they call them resources to continue to provide backfill, it's a tremendous effort that's been going on. And not just because on the 28th they said they're shutting down the big operation at the church. I think they felt that they had to give the church back over to the parishioners. They basically took over that property and the church. These people want to go back and pray. Right. And also there's the other aspect of this investigation. If you covered 4.6 acres of property to search, they work from the inside out. Once you cover that and go over it once or twice or 3 times, or whatever they did, now you have to pinpoint your investigation on the forensics, on the electronics, getting all of the computer forensics and working that aspect of it. And I think that's what's going on right now. And they're also, as they get information, still going back out. But I want to say a special thank you to everyone here in the chat from the Duty Ron family. I see everybody positively interacting in the chat. Maddie Boy Sully, Nat Man, Dawn Marie, Phoebe, thank you so much for being in here. I can't say how important it is for a channel like this and a channel like myself to exist and coexist is when we share, as Bill likes to say, the cross-pollination. When we share our subscribers and our friends, I like to refer to everyone as friends. It's so great to see them all interacting in the chat, and they're all so pleasant and really complimentary. So thank you to everybody here in the chat. It's great to see everybody, even though I'm not going to you live from Duty Ron. I'm here with Police Off the Cuff, and I'm honored to be here and to be a part of this panel with Bill. So thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Duty Ron. I just like to shout out to some of the folks. Austin Spriggs, Black Rose, thank you for the $2 super chat. Of course, Joe Murray, Rabbit Culture, Crazy Diamond. I'm seeing some names, and folks, if you're new, please subscribe to the Police Off the Cuff channel on YouTube. We also have a Patreon. become a member of our Patreon. We have 3 tiers. One for $7 a month called Polish My Rack. One for $9 a month called, the first one is The Bucket, $9 a month is Polish My Rack, and 11 is Dipped in Butter. And everyone likes it dipped in butter, so that's why it costs more. It costs more.
Yeah, listen, I hope I can get one of those police off the cuff mugs dipped in butter. I'd love to show it off during my live streams. But yeah, you guys can always support by going over to that Patreon page and, becoming a subscriber, and also here with the super chat. So it's always greatly appreciated. I got to say quickly, Bill, we talk about timelines and how vague they are. And the reason they're vague is because we really don't know whether they're true or not, but they are there and they're on paper. June 15th is the day that she was reported missing. And here we are, July 10th, with no really set answers. And they stopped giving these news conferences. But as of today, the updates came in from TBI, and they talk about still wanting to question the red vehicle. We're going to link that in the description and the 1-800-TBI tips line. But I wanted to talk quickly. I don't know if you mind going into this, but this is not the first run-in with somebody going missing. In August 21st of 2009, Kansas sister Rose Marie Bly mysteriously went missing from St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin. Now, I'm not sure if I'm saying that name right, but it's in Wisconsin. 12 years ago, come the 21st of next month. She left her home to meet a friend, a cousin, actually, at a bar, a friend and a cousin. She left it around like 8 or 9 o'clock at night and said to her husband she'd be home by midnight. It was only 5 miles away, and she just vanished off the face of the earth. 2 days later, her car was found 30 miles away at a truck stop. So these are things that happen under suspicious circumstances. And this is like a detective's notebook, right? Look at how many pages are ripped out. These are all the cases that I've covered. This thing was brand new. This is what we do when we try to keep, our cases in order. But what I found very odd about Kansas, the mom, when she was asked and spoke about her sister, she exhibited the same very low key, no emotion, no concern. She just said, "Isn't it terrible how people can go missing without a trace?" And she didn't even say in the same sentence, "like my daughter," but she just very, very, very low key said, "Yeah, it's a shame. She just vanished." And they use that terminology when they refer later on to their daughter, that she just vanished. She just disappeared. So I don't know about you, Bill, but I find that very coincidental. I mean, people have multiple crimes happen to families. We have people that, brothers, both brothers get shot over in Brownsville in East New York and in some of the worst parts of New York. And you just say, oh, well, you're playing that game, you're in the life. But what's the excuse here for these folks?
Duty Ron, I find her behavior very disconcerting, very unusual for someone that is facing the potential loss of her daughter. And the fact that she reacted the same exact way in regards to her sister disappearing to me, very disconcerting. I wanted to just also interject something, is that when we had the panel, I believe it was on Wednesday night with the whole NYPD crew.
It was Wednesday. Yeah.
I can't even keep track of the days here. That is the way that when real investigators get together with a case, that is the way I used to call it hypothesizing and theorizing. In fact, I used to yell at some of my detectives. I would say, stop hypothesizing and theorizing and start typerizing your reports, But that is the way that you solve things, by throwing things out to each other and let it bounce off people, and use all the investigative minds and let them make suggestions and say, "Nah, I don't think that's the way we should go," or "This is the way we should go," or "How about this? I didn't know he said that." Well, okay, well, go check it out. You go interview so-and-so, get back to me and let me know what occurred. That is how cases get solved. And I know that, the local police here, the TBI, the FBI, they're doing that. They're sharing information. They're speaking among themselves. And pretty much one of the things that in one way it's impressive, but in another way, it's a little frustrating for the public is that they're not sharing the meat and potatoes of this case with the public. And they have good reason not to. But I just want people to know that's what they're doing. It's not that they're not making any forward progress in this case. They are, but they're not just sharing it out there, because you could see the internet goes crazy with rumors, and it's as we spoke about the other night, it's like playing telephone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% right. There's so many aspects to this investigation that goes on behind the scenes that we never know and that we're not going to speak about. You have a whole slew of sex offenders in that area. Too many to mention here. The numbers were astronomical when I looked them up last week. But they have to go out and interview every one of these sex offenders. They need to go, and obviously we know that's part of the checklist. They're going to go to everyone that's still there and that's available to see in person and question them. Hey, where were you on June 15th? Do you have an alibi? Do you have someone who can verify it? Because these sex offenders, they sign a release and an agreement to, it's almost like parole. They're like signing some of their rights away when they get released into the communities. We know that we have, by law, we have to get notified. In my own neighborhood here, I'm subscribed to the notification list. So if a sex offender makes a house here in my neighborhood, I know about it and I keep my eye out on them. You can bet your bottom dollar these investigators are going to each and every one of these sex offenders that reside in Hawkins County and that is in that area, and they are questioning them. So that in itself is a big on-taking. It's a lot of work. You know how these things go. Sometimes you can't get a hold of them. You got to make the trip back. You got to keep coming back. You got to get a hold of these people. So that's why this stuff takes time.
And also duty, Ron, and this was a big thing with the NYPD, is to debrief people who get arrested, because people that get arrested, especially if they're facing a big charge, they want to talk. They want to tell you what they know, and to trade it for a court consideration. So that's all very that's all very important too. And also keeping your ear to the ground with parole and with probation, because the people that are always involved with the criminal justice system, these are the people we're interested in talking to. Angie Ang, thank you so much for that $9.99 super chat. I think Angie Ang, is probably showing up for Joe in court because he's so busy with his lawyer work. He's got to send Angie because he can't handle it all,
And not only that, we grab him to come on our podcast all the time. So between the appearances on Duty Ron, the appearances on Duty Ron, appearance on Police Off the Cuff, this guy is
he's a superstar. I'm just gonna do a little quick shout out to him. There's Joe Murray is a friend of the show of Police Off the Cuff. A lot of the women are calling him now the Silver Fox. He's a great attorney. He's a retired NYPD police officer. He was a former member of the PBA boxing team. He was a heavyweight. I won't tell you his whole boxing history, but he was a pretty good fighter too. And he has a website, jmurray-law.com. And God forbid you get in trouble, but if you do and you're in the New York area, give Joe Murray a call, 646-838-1702. Joe Murray, great attorney, great friend of the show.
The only thing we're missing is Phil Grimaldi to do that, because he does it better than anybody.
Phil Grimaldi.
Should record him. Maybe you should record him and just put Phil on every time.
I probably let me just hit the Myrtle Beach crew, and then
okay.
If anyone of you folks are looking to move down south to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Carol Waters is a realtor down there. She's a former bartender at Fitzpatrick's Hotel in New York City, and her husband Rob Mahan was a former NYPD who rolled over to the fire department. They both moved down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and they're a team selling real estate down there. So whether you need a condo, a vacation home, or you're looking to move down there for good, give Carol Waters a call, 914-261-6681, or you can hit her up on the on email, carolwaterssellsmb@gmail.com. It's this case is baffling, Duty Ron, and it's like there's so many things in this case that we can't explain. And I say it all the time. We're not
Right.
privy to the case folder. And
Yeah.
maybe some of the things that we don't understand right now, if we were in fact working on the case, we had the case folder in front of us, we would understand what the missing pieces.
Right. You know, I look at a little bit of what goes on in the chat. You know, not here in these live chats, but like in my replays and in other people's chats. And you know, a lot of the folks that are in the chat come up with some good questions and good possibilities. You know, and we all know about the chances of stranger abduction are very low. We've talked about it. I had Mark Class from the Class Kids Foundation come on when we did our live stream about Orrin and Orson West. You were there with me. He said those are very remote cases and they happen few and far between. But each individual case has a possibility. And as the sheriff and the TBI and FBI, as they say, we are not discounting any possibility here. So they're looking right now at every possibility. So for the folks who are saying, well, they're not looking here, they're not looking there, they're not doing this. Listen, these are human beings, and they can only work so fast. But they are doing they're doing their jobs, and they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. However, to dot your I's and cross your T's, it takes time, and that's where we as human beings we get impatient, and we all say, "Hey, I want answers, and I want it now." You know, and if you don't give me the answers now, I'm gonna kick and scream and pout, and that's what we do, and that's unfortunate, but it's human nature. I want to just say one other thing too. You know, we're not here saying that the mom and dad are guilty. What we're saying here is that they are red flags as investigators. And when we've conducted hundreds, potentially thousands of investigations, I've sat in on so many different interrogations and interviews. I've debriefed every single warrant return that I've done over a decade time in fugitive enforcement. So every single person I came in contact with, sometimes was over 30 a month, I would debrief them. So we know when we see someone telling a story to us that when something doesn't sound right, and I call it doesn't smell right. I said that from the get-go when I saw just Dawn speak and then when I saw her speak. But I want to bring up a point of one thing that Candace said. She mentions in her story that they went to this watering hole to kill some time to wait for a Walgreens prescription for her mother, who we don't know if she brought the mom to the hospital or who brought the mom to the hospital. She was in the hospital. We don't know if she got a procedure or what she did, but they needed to get a prescription from Walgreens and then pick her up. So there was time that Kansas said that she took to go to this watering hole and let Summer swim a little bit with another friend or with a 15-year-old. We're not going to get into that, but you know, we know that the police will interview and have interviewed that boy and probably his parents. But at the end of the day, she made some statements there that were odd to me when she was talking about she loses track of time when she's having fun. Like for me, that's just not something that I would be saying if my mom was in the hospital and I was waiting to get her and waiting to get a prescription filled. I wouldn't be having fun. It would be more of an urgency for me to get her medicine and get her settled in. And then returning home in that same breath, returning home and with a mom who just had some kind of procedure. Now, whose mom? I don't know how old this woman is, but I got to assume she's older than 40 or 50 because that's how old she is, in her 40s or whatever. The mom has to be in her 60s or 70s, had a procedure at the hospital, and now she wants to plant flowers outside. The whole story stinks. And there's no sugarcoating it. There's no getting around it. And I don't care who or what says, Duty Ron, you're wrong. But that's my thing as an investigator. This story stinks.
Yeah, I don't like it either. You know, I also, we were touching upon before that Don is not a good guy, you know. And Terry O'Brien in the chat says Donald Wells, 56, was arrested at his home on October 14th, 2020, and charged with domestic assault, possession of a handgun while intoxicated, and unlawful possession of a weapon after he reportedly came home intoxicated and found the male at home with his wife. So
he was in his car getting ready to leave. The sheriff blocked him in, took him out of his car with a loaded gun on him.
Right, exactly. So that little monotone voice and that real mellow sound, that sort of belies his personality. Is really, he's got some really bad things in his background.
Right. I have his whole arrest record here. It goes back to the 90s, early 90s. But at the end of the day, Bill, this is a guy who went to prison and did time in Utah. He's from Utah. She's from Wisconsin. They transplanted down to Tennessee because they moved from place to place so many times. I looked up their address history. It was like 3 sheets of locations where these people live.
And Duty, that's a sign of instability too. Obviously,
yeah, they don't have any community ties because they move from place to place. But Bill, that doesn't say that they're guilty of a crime here.
Of course
but
not.
What it does tell me though is that this is a guy who did time, and you and I both know when people are in Sing Sing and doing a bid upstate New York, what happens to them? They all of a sudden rediscover God. They all of a sudden become godly because they got a lot of time to think about their crimes. So most prisoners and most career criminals, and unfortunately, he's a career criminal. Anybody that keeps reoffending is classified as a career criminal. He's a career criminal. He's got a rap sheet a mile long. He became godly because he was incarcerated and locked up. If you don't like it, too bad. That's the truth.
Yeah, no. Look, there's his career, his past career, tells us who he is today, and just it's not just that. Hanging out in that whole prison mentality, as I said before, birds of a feather flock together. And as much as he comes across in his interviews as a good guy, he's not a good guy. He's I'll put it that way. He's not a good guy. Lieutenant Pranzo, I know it was your birthday yesterday, but I'll shout it out one more. I'll shout it out one more day for you, Lieutenant Pranzo. NYPD Harlem Raiders fame, great guy. He's always in our chat here.
Wishing Pete many more healthy and happy years with his beautiful wife Richella. What a great family they are. I can't wait to meet them. They're local here for me. So happy birthday, Pete. Much love and respect to you. But yeah, I sometimes our opinions and our professional take is not really, the etiquette is not right. But at the end of the day, I've seen so many shitheads, and I hate to use that term. I've seen so many shitheads commit crimes that look me straight in the face and say, "Detective, I didn't do this." And then meanwhile, I go right to the bodega and I get the videotape of them punching somebody in the face and stabbing somebody.
Right.
So, we know how this goes, and, only time will tell. Walgreens has cameras and they have video footage. If she says that she walked in or her mother walked in with Summer, whatever the case may be, at the secondary store where they got that milk and all the things that they do, I tell you, they're going to have a lot of things to look at and to add up and see. Does her story jive? Does her story jive with the videotapes that we see in the Walgreens and at these locations? We know that her time is wrong. So her times are wrong.
Yeah, Duty Ron, just to interject. Joe Murray just asked, the attorney, great attorney Joe Murray, do we know if they're still cooperating and whether or not they have retained counsel or declined to answer questions or declined the polygraph?
So I know that they haven't retained counsel, and they don't look like they'd be able to afford counsel. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't think she works. I think he's working. It doesn't look like they're, living in, upper class or whatever you want to call it. They're scraping to get by, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't look like they can afford a private attorney. And in this situation, they'd have to hire and pay an attorney unless they were.
Hey, Duty Run, we don't want Joe Murray flying to Tennessee right now.
No, he can't. He can't. He has to stay in New York. But the husband said that his wife passed the polygraph. I'm telling you, you know this. We go by what law enforcement says, and not one blurb came out of CBI or FBI or local sheriff that any of them passed or took a polygraph. So if somebody has them saying that or has a statement from TBI or FBI or local sheriff, send it to me on dutyron.com because I'd like to see it. But as of this time, I have yet to see or hear any confirmation from law enforcement. If you've heard it from somebody on Facebook or Twitter or on social media, I don't want to hear about it, because
Duty Ron, a lot of people will want to know where's the investigation go from here? And basically what I would tell people is that they just keep pushing forward. They just keep coming into work every day, keep interviewing people, keep cross-checking information. We haven't heard much about the electronic information, cell phones, the computers. Even there is technology sometimes where you can actually check all of the electronic devices in a specific area, which they might want to try to do right by that house at 6:30 at night on Friday, June 15th. And that potentially could, get some good information. But we don't know any about that end of the investigation.
Correct. And it would be not right for us to say or talk about information that we have no facts or no confirmation of. Somebody just said in the chat, and I have to shout this out. I can't find the name, but they said, Duty Ron, they have money to pay for cigarettes and twisted teas, but they certainly don't have money to pay for an attorney. So I thought that was kind of humorous, and kind of true. Again, if they could find an attorney that would work pro bono in Eastern Tennessee, attorney that would try to pick up a case like this that is so what's the best word I could use? It's so not stable. It's all over the place. And you don't see them out searching for their kids. You don't see them handing out flyers. The only thing I see from them is that they do some interviews with the news and some other people on Facebook Live or whatever, YouTube or whatever stuff that they've done. It's more stuff. The more they talk, the more ammo I think the investigators have, and more power to them. If they're innocent and it's proven that they're innocent, then we need to still find out what happened to their daughter. And they don't seem like the urgency is of high matter to them. At least that's what they're projecting to me. And I could be wrong, and people can agree to disagree with me, and I respect that. But at the end of the day, that's my opinion as a seasoned investigator. I see them both as something's not right. Something's not up. Something's not kosher with them.
Right.
I'll put it that way.
Duty Ron, someone in the chat, Above and Beyond Ancestor Readings, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. But they said, what is done in the dark will always come to light. Law enforcement will soon have all they need to press charges. Trust the process.
Bingo, Yahtzee. Perfectly said.
Something, and there is a process, and there is, I think, good always trumps evil. It'll always win out over evil, but you have to have patience. And when you talk about a missing 5-year-old girl, none of us want to have patience. And we all understand why the community is getting upset about this, and people are saying, in the chat, why hasn't this been solved yet? But this is a difficult case.
There's so much information, and there's so much misinformation, and there's so many people talking about all different things. And you know what? Listen, a lot of the things that people are talking about can have some relevance, but a lot of it doesn't have any relevance, and it doesn't lead us to what happened to Summer. Summer Wells is a 5-year-old girl that we don't know what happened to. We have no idea. According to her parents, she vanished in what she said 2 minutes. Now we can argue that she loses track of time and her 2 minutes was 20 minutes, but that's neither here nor there. But what we have on the plate is that she let the girl go in the house. She disappeared and did whatever. She didn't say what she did. We don't know what she did. Did she go on a hike when she said she doesn't go hiking because she's scared of the wildlife? Where did she go for 20 minutes or 2 minutes? Where do you go? And then how does this girl just all of a sudden vanish in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere? You showed that overview. It's not a place that someone just stumbles across and says, oh, I'm going to hang out here and wait for an opportunity for me to take this little girl. You heavily wooded. Look at that. So it's not a place that cars just go riding by, and people that drive down those roads for a purpose. So there's a lot to figure out. from the investigative side, and it's up to the TBI and the FBI. I have every confidence in the world that between the resources that the FBI and TBI have to them, available to them, that they will sort this thing out. It may take a long time, or it may happen quick. It all depends on what comes to the forefront. Whatever comes to the forefront, I'm hoping it happens sooner than later, because my main concern is about Summer Wells, not about anything else. Whoever did this to him, justice will be served, and that long arm of the law will come out and grab him. I'm sure.
You know, Duty Ron, when you see that aerial view of the house, which I have on the screen right now, in addition to it, the terrain being extremely unfriendly, allegedly they have 20 or more dogs on their property.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
If Summers was in fact taken from the property, it would have to be someone maybe that knew these dogs, you know, or else I'm sure these dogs would attack someone that they didn't know, you know.
So it's argued that, you know, who cares if it's 7 or 20 dogs? See, these are the things that are irrelevant, that mean nothing to finding out what happened to her. Whether there was 100 dogs there, whether there was 5 or 7 or 20, it doesn't mean anything. There's dogs. My dog, if someone comes to my door, is barking like crazy. So it could have been one dog, and it would make noise. So I think you are right. The kids hold the answers. Those boys hold the answers, if she even was at that house, if that story even is true. Like we talked about with Trezell and Jacqueline West, their story is the same thing. It even stinks worse, because we have video evidence that the kids never left that house in California City. So their story smells and stinks to high heavens, Trezell and Jacqueline West, even worse than the Wells story here. But the Wells story, we don't have video to back it up. In California, there's video to show that they were full of shit, and that those kids never went wandering out that gate in the backyard. So that makes it even more stronger evidence than what we have here. We're going by what she's telling us. Is that story in fact true? There's so many unanswered questions. And for me, I don't like it. I think that there's a 50-50 chance that story is bullcrap.
Well, Duty Ron, that's why investigators have to question everyone that is in the circle of these people, you know, of Don and his wife, because Candace, Don and Candace, everyone that's in their circle has to be questioned, re-questioned. When they get their information, they have to vet the information, check out the statements they made against what they know, check out the statements against what other people have said, and therein somewhere lies the truth.
You know, there's two sides to every story, and then there's the truth, just as you just said, in a different way. At the end of the day, my feeling is that I got a really bad vibe right from the get-go. And I was away. I was outside the country when this all unfolded, so I really couldn't chime in on it until I came back. But once I came back, I got a good look at the interview with Don, and Candace didn't even have an interview yet until I came back home. And then when I saw them both together, it even stunk even more to me. And, you know, I'm saying that I have all the answers. This is just my investigative skills tell me that there's something not right here. Everything about this story doesn't add up. And I know that our partners in the FBI and the CBI, they see it as well. They're just not vocalizing. We have the option. We have the availability to vocalize it. But, you know, again, the evidence is going to lead them to it. The interviews are going to lead them to it. And I'm hoping the electronic, you know, these folks don't seem like they've got burner phones and threw their phones away. Their internet searches, everything that they searched on their computers, on their cell phones, all of her TikTok videos, all the things that she searched in her Google search bar, or whatever she did, whether she erased it or not, they're going to get it, and they've got it. They're processing it. They're looking at it. And I think and I hope that that'll lead to some answers. If she communicated with Don when everything happened and they conjured up some plan, I don't think they were smart enough to go out and get burner phones and get rid of them. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, you know, we discussed, and I don't want to get into it at this late point, we discussed how instead of her calling 911, she called Don. And to me, that was a little bit strange, you know,
Right.
because
Yeah.
if she was really missing, wouldn't you want to call the police and immediately get them there? You know,
Yeah.
he's at work. I would want to call the police first, but she called him first, and
You
then
know, it's funny, Bill. I asked my wife this today when we were out together because I knew we were going to get together and talk about this. And I asked my wife, if our boys went missing when they were younger, would you have called me first? And she said, yeah, she would have called me, but she would have immediately called 911. And Kansas didn't do that. She didn't do the call to him and then the next call to 911. We're going to come to see that because eventually that'll come to light. She took some time to call 911. It wasn't right away. And anybody that has that information, anybody that has that 911 timestamp, you'll know that there was a delay in her making that call to 911. So that's also something of concern to me.
well, you know, duty run. That's why to me it's frustrating to not have the exact information from the police and from the
Right.
correct investigative information. Just getting it secondhand from the internet is not
Right. That's a problem. And I got to say this. My wife also added in that she would have called me because when our kids were little like that, I was an active detective. So it's a little different, you know, like she knew, she said, I knew that you would tell me what to do, you know, so she said it would have been you to call first and then call 911. So.
right. Well, you know, as I said earlier in this show, we just want to sort of lay out some of the investigative things that the police, the FBI are doing. In no way will we, from our pulpit here on Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories or on the Duty Ron show, have any chance at all of solving this case, nor will any of the other internet sleuths that think they have all the answers here. This case is going to be solved by the police.
It's not our job.
No, we're sort of just talking about it to sort of lay some things out there and basically you know, review the case and maybe give some suggestions.
You know, and that's a lot of what we have to do, Bill. You and I talk about this privately, but we could talk about it here. It's about education. You know, the folks that are into true crime and the folks that are into investigative stories, they want to learn. You know, you hear so many of the folks who watch CSI type shows, and you know what they say? I want to learn about what goes on in the lab. I want to know how they process DNA. So we give really the police perspective, the investigator's perspective, without giving away the shop. And Joe Murray is throwing his money at you, Bill. You might have to get a pole to start dancing.
You know, so that's pretty funny. But you know something, Joe Murray, he again says, and we said this before. The problem is that we don't have the case file, we don't have the DD5s of all the other interviews and tips about the people in the community that may be suspect. We only have the parent statements, and that is frustrating. That's correct.
Yeah.
Because even the tip file, if there's 800 tips or 850 tips, there has to be 850 reports on the results of the interview on the tip. You know.
Correct. And we're, like you said, we're not looking to solve the case. No retired detective wants to, go out there and do the job of an active on-duty investigator. But what we do here is to give people an idea of what goes on a little bit behind the scenes and the reason why it takes so long from somebody who has actually done the job. So that's the perspective, and that's what you get. If you guys have not considered subscribing to Police Off the Cuff, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. So anytime Bill uploads a video or goes live, you'll get the notification. He's a 27-year veteran of New York City Police Department. He spent 16 of those 27 years as a sergeant in the homicide squad in Manhattan North, one of the busiest places in the 5 boroughs. So give Bill a subscription. Check him out. Follow him on all of his social media and all the good things that he's doing. Make sure you subscribe to Duty Ron as well if you're not yet subscribed. But I wanted to say on Sunday, June 27th, the TBI scaled back their search efforts. And a lot of people went into a whole tizzy about that. Oh, they're giving up. They're packing it in. They're not going to be doing anything. But what they say in their press releases were search efforts. In the search for Summer Wells, we're scaling back our search efforts due to the difficult terrain and exhausting crews, both physically and mentally. The search efforts will continue on a more specialized team basis, and it's as needed and directed from local, state, and federal authorities. Just because we may not have been seen and such a large presence anymore in and throughout the area, rest assured that we have not quit, and we won't quit until we find Summer Wells. So that's a powerful statement. They said on June 27th that they won't quit until they find Summer Wells. And the sheriff has said it, the TBI has said it, and the FBI continues to stand arm to arm with the investigative team. And then you have people that are coming from all the different search crews that have given their time and have conducted these searches. The crews searched more than 4,600 acres since June 15th. So it's a lot of ground that's being covered. Everybody has to be patient and has to understand that this process takes time. And we have to support and get behind our law enforcement. I sent over $500 towards the reward money to Civis Bank with the young man who came onto my show, and he was highlighted on the news. Unbelievable, Trevor. He donated $2,000 of his own money, a 19-year-old kid from Tennessee Community College. The kid is just wanting to find out what happened to this girl, and the whole community feels the same way. So I say special thank you to everybody who puts their heart into it and that really puts the effort forward, no matter what it is, conversation, talking with your friends about it, sharing videos. You guys are excellent. So I'm giving a big thumbs up to everybody in the chat and all of the people from the great state of Tennessee for everything that you guys are continue to do to help law enforcement find Summer Wells. That's what this is about.
You know, and Duty Ron, lastly, someone in the chat says, for Truth or Tradition says, this is a job for Jesus. And surely prayer in this incident, it can't hurt at all. You know, prayers
Amen.
can help. And I think that if you want to pray for the recovery of Summer, and please do so. I think that can only help. Anyway, go ahead, Duty Ron.
But I want to also say, not just Summer, all of the children and all missing people across the country and across the world, for that matter. You know, we have so many people who are outstanding. You know, Echo, Lloyd. You got the two boys. You have Maya Miliete, and there's hundreds, thousands of others that don't get this big platform. They're not out there on the grand stage. So my heart and my prayers and my sincere feelings go out to all of the families and all the folks across the globe who are missing their loved ones. You know, it's a shame that we have to have this going on in 2021, where people go missing and they just vanish. So we're looking for closure for all the victims and their families across the globe. So thank you, Bill, for hosting this and having me on. I know you can take it.
You know, Duty Ron, I really appreciate having you on, and in a lot of ways, you've been my sort of like a mentor to me in this style of show. A lot of the shows on Police Off the Cuff are of the format where we have a guest and we interview the guest and we talk about the guest's career and all of that stuff, which is great, which is fascinating. We've had some amazing guests on, like, you know, Joe Pistone, who's the real Donnie Brasco. He's been on twice. We've had Joe Murray, has a fascinating career. And we've had some of the best, most amazing NYPD superstars who get to tell the stories of their career, or else these stories would die with them. And, you know, no one else likes to hear, well, actually, the public likes to hear it too, but other cops love to hear war stories. They love to hear cops tell war stories. And usually war stories are told in a bar, and they tell the stories and you have a lot of laughs and no one ever gets to hear them again. But we've sort of memorialized a lot of these great stories so that, you know, one day maybe you could say, hey, that was my granddad. Look what he did, you know, and you hear these amazing, amazing stories. Chief Louis Anamone, who was the chief of the department. Great man. We've had him on a couple of times. I mean, we've had over 290 shows, so I can't even tell you. Mike Heinrichs, one of the most highly decorated detectives, was to Medal Day 4 times, had 212 department citations, 2 medals of valor, 2 combat crosses. I mean, these are the superstars that we've interviewed. But as I said, Duty Ron has sort of steered me to do a lot more of these shows, the investigative shows, and I really thank him for that, because as a result of Duty Ron, my subscriptions are going up astronomically, and I really owe that to him.
You know what I feel? Thank you, Bill. And you know what I feel, that you have a lot to contribute in this true crime genre because of your experience. You know, I wouldn't recommend this to someone who, you know, pushed a pencil and worked inside and was a house mouse. So, you know, I think that this is right up your alley, and I think the folks here in the chat will agree with me. They want more of somebody like yourself and all of the great guests that you have available to you, and I use some of them as well, and I have a ton that I could, you know, go and call from our experience on the New York City Police Department. So when you do a career that's spanned over 27 years, and mine was just a little bit over 20, you know, you make so many connections and contacts. So I think you're an invaluable asset to the true crime community, to the folks here who love to hear about cases and what's going on with them, and you're going to do great. So again, you know, to everybody that's come over and that's here and that's new, for all the folks that are watching outside the country and on the replay, for the folks who watch on a replay, we love you on the replay as well. So thank you for that. Bill, I got to go because it's past my bedtime.
Yeah, you know, something that we actually stayed on longer than we had intended, but you know, when we get talking, we don't even have to be drinking a Corona. We just sort of keep talking, and I hope the people in the live chat and the people that are listening to it enjoyed the show. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories, and for my guest, Duty Ron. Good night, everyone.
Peace.